How's it going, guys? I'm Matt Torx, and like some people that I've talked to, I've recently been participating in my yearly ritual of getting really into the game Skyrim. And by getting into it, I mean playing a new character non-stop for about 2 weeks, going into every random cave I see, doing none of the main story missions, then never touching that save file ever again.
Hey, you!
You're finally awake.
But this time when I was wandering through Tamriel, a thought crossed my mind. What is the rest of the Elder Scrolls series like? I mean, this is Elder Scrolls V after all, and beyond Skyrim, I had really only ever played like Morrowind or Oblivion on occasion. Anything beyond that, my knowledge was worthless. So I decided to do some research, and what I found was a massive series with games spanning across multiple decades and platforms. So in an unofficial sequel to one of my most popular series on this channel, playing all of the Fallout games, I'm going to be playing every single game in the Elder Scrolls franchise that I can get my hands on, giving my thoughts and opinions about each, then ranking them all in one massive tier list at the very end. Now, prior to doing my research, I had no idea what I was really getting myself into. So in total, the Elder Scrolls franchise contains 13 or 15 games, depending on how you look at it. Quite a bit of a step up from Fallout. The list contains 5 main games, 2 spin-offs, 3 handheld games, a VR port, 3 mobile games, and 1 MMORPG. Quite a big task at hand. But to start things off simple, today we're going to start this series with the OG Elder Scrolls, The Elder Scrolls Arena. Elder Scrolls Arena was an action RPG published by Bethesda Studios on March 25th, 1994, and released to MS-DOS operating systems. The game is a procedurally generated RPG that takes place in the fictional continent of Tamriel in the Third Era, year 389. The game created the wonderful fantasy world that the series is so well known for today, filled to the brim with magic, kings and queens, cozy taverns, and monsters lurking around every corner. Now, one of the things that kind of surprised me when researching this game was the fact that this game series was actually created by Bethesda. I'd always kind of assumed, based on the current reputation that this studio carries, that Bethesda had bought the franchise off of an older studio, the same way that they did with Fallout in the late 2000s. But the series has been a Bethesda product since the very beginning, which shows in its graphics, since Elder Scrolls Arena uses the same system of early 3D graphics that can be seen on the early Doom games, where the screen uses sharp angles and shapes to make the screen feel more three-dimensional, despite still showing 2D models and textures, which was actually really cool for me to see booting this game up for the first time, as games like this help to shape the medium of three-dimensional games as we know them today. But actually loading into the game, the first thing I get greeted with is a banger soundtrack that gets me creaming in my pantaloons. And a big old lore drop in the form of some fading scrolls. It turns out that the 4th Emperor of Tamriel, Uriel Septim IV, was betrayed and taken prisoner by the evil wizard Jaeger Tharn. Now Tharn has taken control of the Empire and gathered up an army of his evil monsters. And after getting to create my very own character, a dark elf thief by the name of Barneus the Simple, I get tasked by this lady, Rhea Simmons, to escape my prison cell and find my way to stop the mage before he rules all of Tamriel. Then, without any further instruction, I'm thrusted into a dark and dingy stone dungeon. One of the first things I noticed about this game that confused me right from the get-go, and there's no way I could actually go without talking about, is the damn controls. Now, I know that this game was made before 3D games were the norm, but Jesus Christ, man. The way that you move in the Elder Scrolls Arena, as opposed to the traditional WASD, is by clicking and holding different parts of the screen. Hold at the top to move forward, hold left or right to rotate, and hold just above the HUD to backstep. Now look, I'm not saying I'm smart or anything. My intelligence is only a couple points off from the average League of Legends fan, but I feel a movement system like this could only be created by a special type of idiot who wanted to cause nothing but pain and suffering to those who play it. Almost like the twisted wizard Jaeger Tharn himself was casting a curse upon any who crossed his path. I know in my Fallout 1 video, I also got confused by the controls on my very first playthrough, but since that game was turn-based, clunky controls aren't as much of an issue, as you still can get some time to feel through them. But in a real-time game like this, responsiveness is key, something that just wasn't quite available at the time, so I guess I can't judge it too harshly. Anyway, back to our hero, Barneus. We collect the key to our cell door on a nearby table, get that sweet, small taste of freedom, and take approximately 3 steps before falling into a random stream of sewer water. And in one of the most frustrating mechanics of this game, Being able to actually get out of these small streams or rivers is fucking almost completely up to luck. There's no jump button, so in order to vault your way back up, you just have to bash your head into the nearest wall and pray to Talos that you return to the platform. Unluckily for my little swimming session, a goblin happened to be on lifeguard duty, and thanks to this goblin, poor Barneus might have had the shortest life of any character ever recorded in this game. And in this game, if your character dies, they're gone forever, and you have to start from square one all over again. Something that you're gonna see a lot in this video, as only a couple of my attempts at this game were actually able to even make it out of the beginning dungeon and into the real world. My first character to actually make it past the bubonic plague rats and incest goblins of this cave was none other than the actual Chad, Gus, a high elf barbarian that was just barely able to run to the exit gate and escape the dungeon, which spawned me into a random town in the middle of the night. Now low on health and desperate not to die again, I made my way to the nearest tavern, the Rusty Guard. Now I tried my hardest to converse with some of the local population, but it turns out the lands of Tamriel were more racist than the average white guy in Missouri, and they didn't want anything to do with my inferior elf genes. So I rented a bed to heal my wounds and cry myself to sleep. In my dreams, I was visited once again by Mrs. Simmons, who tells me of a magical staff that was used by the wizard Tharn to banish the Emperor and destroy her corporeal form. Afterwards, he shattered the staff into 8 perfect pieces, and that I need to find all 8 of them in order to defeat Tharn. Now unfortunately, Gus would never be able to quite accomplish that goal, as on my way out of town, I ran into the all-powerful nun, gifted with the ability to fucking crash my game when I try to talk to her, and remove Gus off the fucking face of the earth. So in order to pay my respects to a fallen hero, I named my next character Gus II, who was actually able to make his way into the outside world successfully. So after making my way to yet another tavern and trying to talk to the innkeeper, my Nord privilege lands me a side job delivering the daughter of a wealthy aristocrat to the Order of the Gentle Hand, a place that I have no idea where it is. So I decided to take up an audience with the king of this town. Instead of being helpful, he just tells me to enjoy the town and kicks me out of his palace. I choose then to hit the open road on my search for Hammerfell, the location of the first staff piece. But upon my travels, I wandered into this random building that happened to have this one wizard dude who bitch slapped Gus II like it was nothing, and so ends the story of another great hero. And even though many tried to replicate the glory of the Gus lineage, like this high elf Barb, this wood elf Hugh, this gnome named Squeech, or even the dark elf Ivan, but as fate would have it, none of them were able to unshackle themselves from the catacombs underground. So after about 4 hours straight playing this game, unfortunately this is where I'm gonna have to end the video. Real quick, I just gotta say that I'm aware that in this video I have barely scratched the surface of what this game truly has to offer, since I only made it out of the beginning dungeon for fuck's sake. But considering how brutal and unforgiving this game is, I assume the average Joe who's looking to pick up this game won't get too much farther than I did, although my assumption is just banking on the fact that I'm not incredibly bad at this game, which I probably am. As for my thoughts on the game, I'd say it accompanies a space in my head very similar to that of Fallout 1. I do enjoy revisiting both of these games and watching how each of them gave birth to the massive series we know today, shaping the ideas that would later be expanded upon. What I will say is that I definitely prefer Fallout 1 over Elder Scrolls Arena though, as I feel the story is much better delivered in that game, and it keeps you wondering the whole time, whereas the Elder Scrolls Arena is pretty straightforward. On top of that, this game just has a whole lot of jankiness and clunky controls that just don't really stand the test of time when comparing them to any sort of modern game. I do like this game, but overall I just feel that this series has some truly great games later down the line that I personally think I would enjoy more. But as always, if this is your favorite Elder Scrolls game, and I've pissed you off somehow, feel free to let me know in the comments below. And if you want to see me play any of the other Elder Scrolls games, make sure to leave a like on this video and subscribe to the channel since we are so close to 2,000 subs. And with that guys, thank you for watching this video, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.